All right, we're going to get back at it for the last section of the day. And next up, we have the CISO and VP of Architecture at Technology Group Solutions, our awesome sponsor. And I'd like to call to the stage Uriah McHaffie.
All right.
He'll be talking about security at the speed of thought.
Kinda. All right. So let's talk about security real quick, and then we'll get into the presentation. And just so you know, I do like to ask questions during my presentation, so I hope you're prepared. Please pay attention. So those of you that deal with cybersecurity or information security, so AI really affects information security more than cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is keeping the bad guys out and the data in. Information security is how do I protect the business as a whole. And that's what AI impacts. The reality is that there are no security controls for AI today. So it's a really straightforward presentation. I'll be done in about 2 minutes. There's no way to secure AI today. It's actually the inverse. I did a presentation 2 weeks ago to the government agencies in the state of Kansas. And if you look at what's happening with generative adversarial networks, which hasn't been talked about today, everything was just generative models today. It's the opposite. So you can produce ransomware with GAN networks that will defeat every single piece of anti-malware that exists today. And we can thank IBM for that, by the way. They started in 2019 producing those models, and they're just getting better and better and better. So we're going to kind of pause the security conversation because we need a little bit more time. Security revolves around 3 things: IT, politics, and case law. And politics and case law right now are up in the air as it relates to AI and security. So we come back this time next year, we'll have a lot more to talk about, but we're gonna kind of unpackage what we have there today. So let's get into it. Somebody brought it up, I think Burton brought it up. It's at the start of all of my AI presentations. Those of you that know, on August 4th, 1997, something really awesome happened, and most of you probably missed it. What happened on August 4th, 1997? Okay. So we're not quite there yet, but we're going to take a look at how close we actually are, because believe it or not, we're closer than you think. All right. So some of you raised your hands when the gentleman asked about DOS. So here's a test for you. How many of you know about this? Thank you, Jesus, because I gave this presentation a while back, and nobody in the audience, they're like, I have no idea what that is. If you're in IT and you don't know who this is, you are wrong. All kinds of shades of wrong. You need to go home tonight and look it up. Because this started something that, believe it or not, every one of you are using right now. Who remembers these devices? Okay? What you can't see on the left side for you is one of the very first applications that you could run on your Palm Pilot was the bastard operator from hell excuse list. So when somebody asks you a question, and if you knew who the bastard operator from hell was, when a loser asks you a question, you would respond back with, the excuse today is smell from unhygienic janitorial staff wrecked the tape heads. On the right-hand side of the screen, you had the next version of the Palm Pilot, which is really cool. You could connect it to your laptop serially, and after about 8 hours worth of work, you could get it to sync your calendar to it. Everybody remember? Right? Okay. Who remembers this? Okay? Yeah. What did this do to the industry? Disrupted it. Did. Okay? So we've seen 3 pieces of technology. We've seen an application, we've seen a device, and we've seen a new method at which to consume an age-old thing. This was streaming music. We'd all line it up. I remember I'd set it up, let it run overnight on my dial-up modem. And in the morning, hopefully I had songs, most of them timed out because people got offline or other such things. This is good peer-to-peer as well. So that was June 1, 1999. 2000 came around. Who remembers the iPac? Little I, notice it, iPac. Lawsuits came out of that. So I had this device, and I went out and I bought the jacket that it went in that you could attach a PCMCIE card to. And I bought that exact PCMCIE card. Cisco AeroNet 350. The retail price, the list price in 2000 of that card was $750. How much did I pay for it in 2000? Anybody?
35 cents.
I wish. 35 cents. You never get a discount like that from Cisco.
Oh, I was getting it off of eBay.
Oh, yeah, now you can, but not in 2000. I paid $750 for it. Yeah, because back in those days, when you're like, hey, Cisco, I want a discount, they just were like, we're Cisco. And you put those two together, and now you could actually be on the Wi-Fi network. You couldn't do a whole lot. You still couldn't sync your calendar very well, but you could get email on there if you wanted to. But it was really cool for walking around and showing up at meetings and pulling out your stylus and being like, hey, I'd like to take some notes here. Okay? Now, all of this is important because an individual, we were talking about creativity. Creativity is a philosophical thing, right? It's a combination usually of two known ideas that come together. A brilliant person took all the preceding slides and built that. And the rest is literally history. Good idea, good idea, good idea, bolt it together, here we go. Now, this doesn't exist anymore, and it's all on your phone. Driving up here this morning, I live down in southwest Missouri. I was driving up here, and there's some places along 69 or 71 where there's no internet connectivity, and it disrupts my streaming music, and it's so frustrating to me. And then I think back on the days not too long ago where I actually had to print off my directions from MapQuest, those of you that remember, and heaven forbid there be road construction because I'm like, I can't get there from here. All right, so combination of ideas, we get an outcome. Let's talk about a different technology merger. Now, some of you may be surprised here. Artificial intelligence and virtual reality, they have a lot in common in that they've been around longer than people think. Now, I am a serious student. I love learning. And so you see, I always cite my sources. So that way, one, you can edify yourself, go and learn, but also so that you know that I'm not just making stuff up. Because I got tired of coming to things like this and listening to people talk. And I'm like, well, I'd like to know more, but I couldn't. So you can see at the bottom where this kind of comes from. So AI technology was officially created in 1951 is what they say. I disagree with that, but we're going to go with it. VR can be argued to be about 200 years old. AI, machine learning, VR, AR have developed rapidly in the past decade. But is there a role for AI to play in VR? I believe so, and you can see down there. So we say that AI started in 1951 because at the University of Manchester they wrote the first chess and checkers program to play against each other versus playing against a human. And then AI goes back almost 10,000 years. You think that this is something that just happened last week? Oh, ChatGPT came out. We have AI. Well, welcome to the party. It's been around for a very, very long time. And you can go and research some of that yourself. So now we have all these technologies that are starting to come together. I want to expose you to some, and some of you may know this already. I just pick a few cases to kind of open your mind. The first one, gentleman broke his back. So they went in and they put a module in his head and a module in his stomach. And the two modules talk to each other. And they allow him to now walk. Not well. I mean, he's never going to run, you know, a 40, but he can get from here to there. And AI is doing all that. It's interpreting his movements so he doesn't fall over. And all he has in between his rib cage and his pelvis is supporting infrastructure. There's no nerves between there. What's the speed of the signaling of nerves? Does anybody know? It's 250 miles an hour. But if there's no road from here to there, it doesn't matter. And he doesn't have a road anymore. So they were able to fix him. The next one is fascinating to me. because on the surface it looks pretty simple. They took a lady, she's paralyzed, she has ALS, and they stuck a probe in her head. And now she can talk through thought. But it's better than that, okay? It actually watches her face. So if she says something while she's smiling, it can actually translate that into sarcasm. Now, I have a 24-year-old daughter whose native language is sarcasm. And she's been talking to me for about 23 years now. And I've understood about this much of it, because I don't speak sarcasm natively. AI can take her brain signals, what she's thinking, translate that into speech, read her face, and go, add the ha 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 emoji in real time. If that is not fascinating, I don't know what would, except maybe this guy. So this is going all the way back to, I think, 1964. Yes, 1964, 65. Hey, AI just arrived. Dustin, did you know AI is here? Okay. So going all the way back to 1964, this guy actually put EEG probes on his head and used alpha waves to play percussion instruments. And then he traveled around the world doing it. He just died, I think, in like 2001 or something like that. Does anybody know how alpha waves work? Anybody? So alpha waves work as you relax. So like one of the things they track is if your alpha waves start to go away, that you could be going into anxiety and other such things. So the inverse of this outcome has been studied drastically as far as can we predict things like seizures and other such. But this guy just had an idea. Hey, I'm going to use my brain to play the drums. In 1964, we hadn't even gone to the moon yet, right? We were still fighting in Vietnam. I mean, and this guy's playing the drums. And then he didn't just do it in a lab. He traveled around and played concerts doing this. Now, my wife went to school on a music scholarship. I can't read music. I can't sing. I can't sing very good, so I sing really loud. The people in front of me at church hate me. So I always try to make sure I buy them gifts at Christmas time. But this guy actually played the drums by relaxing. And the more he relaxed, the faster the drums beat. Even the government is getting involved in all this. Now, I don't know if that's a good thing. I worked for the government at one time. But they're getting into this because they want to be able to treat, vets and other such people, hey, can we give them better prosthetics? That's what they say. We all know that everything has some sort of warfare application, right? It's like, but even the government is getting involved in this. So let's look at some examples. Since this is an AI conversation, let's actually talk about some AI here. So I'm going to start off with a simple, and then we're going to go to something complex. So this is really simple. This is chat, interacting with Zoom. Send a message to the main channel telling them that I'll be ready for the Zoom meeting in 5 minutes. The right-hand side. Yeah, the right-hand side for you. Sure. I have sent a message to the main channel telling them that you'll be ready for the meeting in 5 minutes. Now, because it's trained, you then ask it, what was the last message sent to the channel? What ChatGPT did was it assumed that my question was from me. And so it responded back to the last message, which was not the last message in the channel, but it's the last message that I posted in the channel. The last message sent to the main channel was, I'll be ready for the Zoom meeting in 5 minutes. I didn't have to tell it what was the last message that Uriah. So it interpreted context for me and replied back. Now, that may or may not have been the context that I wanted. I may have wanted the last message, not the one that applied to me, in it. But if I just put this up there and you read it, you would have totally missed that. Because 90% of the population is just plugging sentences into AI and getting some sort of text back. and you have no idea what it's capable of. We're going to unpackage that a little bit more, but this is it. There's beauty in simplicity. All right, let's make it a little bit more complex here. How many network people do I have in the room? Now be careful. How many of you speak BGP? So we have one, maybe two. Because as a CCIE, if you don't speak BGP, well, are you really doing networking? You really? Yeah. So, okay, scale that around the world. So, good, fair enough, fair enough, fair enough. All right, of the routing protocols, who would say that BGP is probably the most complex? It's kind of hard to do, right? A little bit difficult. Functions differently. It doesn't actually work on routes. It works on autonomous systems. So how many of you think, can ChatGPT be a BGP router? What do you think? Can it do it? No, not only can it do it. You don't think? Okay. Let's see. All right. I like to make fun of myself, so the previous slide was boring. Let's unpackage it. I did not do this. And I only took a little bit of it. This goes on and on and on. So you're going to get just a small piece of it. I want you to act as a BGP router. I will type incoming BGP routes with their attributes. I want you to pay attention. If I was in public school, I'd say, there's a test at the end. Okay? I will type incoming BGP routes with their attributes for various IP prefixes, and you will reply with what BGP route is the best route. Everybody good so far? I will write the incoming BGP route in JSON, and your reply must be in JSON. Missed the R, reply must only include the best BGP route for the incoming prefix included in its attributes. Pay attention. Do not write anything else. Do not write any explanation unless I'm asking you to do so. Everybody good? All right. So then we give it some JSON. First route. There's a route in JSON. You can see at the bottom. Then we give it two more routes. Okay, so that's all we've done. We gave it the initial text, and we've given it 3 routes so far. All good? Explain in English, how did you select the best route for 10.0.0.0.8? Now, it said I selected the route with the highest local preference value for the prefix. In this case, the route with the highest local preference value is the second route you provided with a local preference value of 200. Now, the sentence started, explain. Explain in English, and it explained it. What you might have missed was I never told it, and this guy never told it anything about BGP. Nothing. You're up to date. There was no, here's how BGP works. Here's all the information. Here's what this means. It knew that it needed to look at the local pref value to render that route. Next one. Pay attention. What next hop do you use to send a packet to 10.0.0.1? Okay? The previous prompt was explain. This one is, what next hop do you use? It should be a very short, concise answer. Based on the information you provided, I would use the next hop value of 1112 to send a packet to 10.0.0.1. Look at what happens. This is because the best route for the prefix of 10.0.0.0.8, according to the information provided, has a next hop value of 1112. Do you remember what the last sentence I put in the original prompt was? Don't explain anything. ChatGPT is a petulant child. Right? It went and did what it wanted to do. But it did pick the right information. You don't get to, you may give it confines, and it ignores them. In this case, it did. And then it goes on and on and on as far as the complexity of the routing. I just wanted to capture a little bit. I did put it down there so you could go and look it up yourself and go through it. But it works. Now, it's not capable of receiving packets and routing packets, but I want to ask you this. If I took your route table in JSON format out of your device and I loaded it in ChatGPT and I said, I'm having a problem with this packet not getting where it needs to be, what decision would you make on the packet? And it says, well, the packet gets dropped here. Now you know why BGP is not forwarding your packets. This becomes a troubleshooting tool that you can load data into and solve problems. We could have loaded your route table in JSON format. Most routers today will spit it out in that format if you want it to, or your firewall rule set, or. And the reason why we're using JSON is because it takes it from vendor-specific code to a standardized code, right? For that, and be able to parse it out. But I could have just as easily asked that question real time. All right, let's unpackage a few more things. Natural language processing for potential network configuration, configuration verification. So this applies both for, I'm spinning up a network, but I'm troubleshooting another one. Goals are to detect and fix anomalies in the configuration, like black holes, loops, and other conflicting rules. Spanning tree problems, whether I have a bow tie, an inverted U, those kinds of things. We look at that all the time. Existing approaches rely heavily on formal methods and human experts. You got to learn a whole bunch of stuff to troubleshoot layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, layer 5, layer 6. And then you get to layer 8 where you're dealing with people, and I don't understand that at all, right? What if you didn't have to? What if you were able to just ask questions? So can data-driven natural language processing methods help? For example, can language models trained on mostly correct network-wide configurations and classic anomaly detection techniques spot misconfigurations and inconsistencies? What about adding a supervised layer? So we have a human in there, fine-tune certain correct configurations that are unique to you. An operator would only have to submit the configuration files of their network and inspect an output report of the syntax and reachability errors. Plus, if they provided specifications about routing policies, the checker would verify if routes are not redistributed in ways that violate these policies. All right. Can I do that today? David says yes. Does anybody agree with him? Dustin does. Yes, you can do that today. Configuration synthesis. Do you ever need help with the tedious task of configuring various devices in number of devices, whether satisfying customer requests or optimizing resources? It can be time. I mean, if you just need to go change the VLAN on a switch over and over and over again. We have all kinds of automation tools that do that. But wouldn't it be nice to extract it to where somebody didn't have to know all that command syntax to do that? And this day and age, who wants to fire up a PuTTY terminal to SSH to a switch to change a VLAN? I mean, this is 2023, right? The input would be a customer's requests or SLAs expressed as an arbitrary specification language. It can even contain natural language because chat can read natural language. The output would be a set of configuration files, but what if you could use NLP tools to automate this process? If NLP is successfully implemented, network operators must only master a high-level specification language that describes reachability requirements depending on negotiated policies. Then the NLP agent would automatically generate the corresponding configurations. Case in point, here's a route table, because I can extrapolate that out via JSON. What would my configuration for ISIS be in order to support this? Uriah's second favorite routing protocol, ISIS. What's that?
That's one from the bolts.
I love it. Configuration translation. I have a thing. I want it to look like another thing. Give it another major challenge for large operators is managing a diverse fleet of networking devices from multiple vendors. This works with firewalls too, by the way. If you're a network operator who needs to replace a router with one from a different vendor, you can easily make the switch by simply submitting the legacy configuration lines into the new target language, i.e. from Cisco to Arista, or that cursed Juniper language that nobody seems to understand, right? How can we take something beautiful and elegant and make it complex and hard to do? That's Juniper configuration. But the really cool thing is I don't have to worry about it, because ChatGPT can solve that problem for me. Configuration explanation. This is where it gets interesting. So I'm a CISO now, so I don't actually do anything. Don't tell anybody that, right? I walk around and grumble a lot, and people tend to leave me alone. But sometimes I get things explained to me, and I'm like, I don't understand. Can you say the same thing differently? Especially when we start talking about like Microsoft, or it's like, okay? So imagine if I could have something that solved that problem for me. Have you ever wondered how to translate and explain network configuration to human operators? Actually, I think Ms. Connie just was doing something with drawings this morning. I was driving, so I didn't see it all. Study has shown that network configurations become more complex over time. This is very true of firewalls. We upgrade a firewall, we just keep copying it over, and that's how you end up with a firewall with 7,000 lines of code in it. Additionally, there have been attempts to automatically extract human-readable insights from network configuration. So you look at it and say, hey, what does that mean? If I show you a network diagram and you don't know anything about network diagrams, how can I translate that into something of value to you? So some of these tools exist today. For example, there's net-to-text, which generates interpretable text into explain network forwarding behavior. It'll look at your route tables and other such things. And config-to-spec transforms router configurations into formal specifications. Imagine that. If you say, hey, I need to go buy a new router. What do I need? You can use an AI tool to say, this is what you need, and then you can go, hey, vendor, I need this, versus the vendor coming in and saying, let me sell you something, right? Finally, the generative abilities of NLP techniques such as, and this is GPT-3, are promising to provide comments and explanations in native human language. All right, so here's where the questions come in. And these are valid questions that I have used. And I love some of these, especially as a CISO. Have you seen any new protocols on the network today? That, if you can answer that question 24/7, you are money ahead, because chances are if you see a new protocol on the network, because business is stale. Everybody's like, oh, I've heard this 1,000 times over 20 years, but we do it unique. All right, show me your same old unique. Right? Let me see that. But if you start seeing new protocols pop up on the network, you should probably investigate that. How cool is it? You say, hey, tell me the new protocols on the network. Well, there's 3 of them. There's this, this, and this. You have Telnet running on the network. We don't run Telnet. Okay, I should probably go investigate that. How many clients are on wired versus wireless connections? Handy piece of information. Why is that important? Because we're constantly trying to reduce our footprint. If I can shrink my switch ports down, that's less power consumed, less heat produced, right? And if I constantly see a trend of clients moving from wired to wireless, that's what I want. Who's been on the network the longest? Find those campers, advanced persistent threats. Good one. Let me know if any device is talking to another device, to another outside the data center. Change from question to action. Analyze our firewall configuration against CIS best practices. Let me know where we're out of compliance. We actually did a project here about 7-8 months ago with a customer where we used ChatGPT to write their system security plan. Those of you that know anything about cybersecurity, and SSP is where everything starts. If you don't have an SSP, you don't have security. I don't care what you make up after that. And it wrote it for it. Normally, we would charge a customer a large sum of money to come in and sit down and do that for you. So now you can all do it for free. Compile a list of firmware versions of our network switches. What is the company's minimum password length policy? Please tell me who Uriah reports to. There it's parsing the org list. Last one. How ridiculous is it that Batman could kill Superman? And you guys should all ask ChatGPT that. Only in the movies. We're just going to negate physics. All right. NLP for computer language processing. What about secure coding? Secure coding as a CISO is one of the hardest things in the world to do. It is. Secure coding is hard. And unsecure coding leads to all the CVEs we have. If you don't know, we're up 14% year over year for where we're at. So code verification, code synthesis, code translation, automated code documentation, automated code completion and repair. All of these exist today. This isn't like something of 5 years from now. So it's only going to get better as we look out further. Now, I think the core of this is, hey, where are we going over the next 5 years? So let's talk about that. Moving forward, those of you that haven't followed it, so the IEEE, which governs pretty much everything in the computer field, is on board with this. And they're shoving it all under what's called intelligent reality. And they've had 2 conferences, one in 21, one in 22. They haven't planned one in 23. I haven't seen anything. And so what they're going out there, and they're kind of packaging this up and delivering it forward. And they're taking not just AI, but machine learning, digital twins, virtual reality, mixed reality. Did you guys see Microsoft had a big mixed reality release here? I think it was either yesterday or today. You guys need to spend more time on LinkedIn. Internet of Everything, all that, and combines it together, trying to help us solve this problem moving ahead. If we put all this together, so we have, as just kind of a high level, we have brain signals, signal acquisition, this is going back, digitalized signal processing, control of signals, device. So this is the human kind of interaction. We're doing this exact thing with AI today. This right here. We're talking about creativity and, you know, where that, you know, is AI going to impact our creativity and other such things. Here's the thing. I don't know if it's or will it staunch it or whatever. To me, the question is how can I align with it? And this shows it. So instead of brain signals, it can be. I've already shown you where we're taking feeds directly from a human brain and feeding it in. Signal acquisition. So we talked about, I showed you where a gentleman used his brain waves to play the drums. You can take input from those of us that wear like an Apple Watch, right? All that information can be fed into that. I'm just giving you examples of what's possible. You digitize it, you turn it into signal processing. And signal processing is then I'm going to perform an action based upon the digitized signal acquisition. Then you control that, and then it does whatever you want it to do for that. All of this is what's happening in AI right now. We understand this. We've been doing this for millennia, going all the way back to Aristotle started this kind of process and documenting it. And so here we are today. All right. You're insane. I'm not proposing that we control the network with our minds yet. But if you go to PubMed and you look at brain-computer interface, you can kind of see, this is straight from PubMed, the amount of, or the volume of information that's being sought out there for it and the publications on it. So although I'm not standing up here saying, yes, we should do this, if we're talking out 5 years from now, and we look at where VR is going and its marriage with AI, it's very realistic that 5 years from now, if you're on a help desk, you're wearing Oculus goggles instead of staring at a monitor. So, and to that, I want to unpackage this. So this is the Brain Neural Computer Horizon Project 2020. So this is ongoing, but it started back then. So BCI research, 6 major application themes. All of this revolves around AI. It is the core, but they're saying we're going to take AI and do this thing. Restore, so unlocking the completely locked in. This is people that are in wheelchairs, people that have ALS and other such things that are locked in. Replace, neuroprosthesis, so being able to control my arm. I showed you an example of that with the gentleman that had 2 modules in him and now he can walk. But I underlined 2 of them. Enhanced user experience in computer games. The 2 things that drive internet bandwidth are video games and pornography. They have for for almost 20 years. And so now we're starting to see that they're using BCI to enhance computer games. So that means 5 years from now, my grandson, Jesus forbid, would be playing video games, he'd have a chip in his mind, he's just walking around. What are you doing? I'm playing video games. I'll be like, grandson, let's go to the woods. Supplement, augmented reality glasses. I don't know if you guys have seen the new glasses out. They have the camera in, it feeds directly into AI. Did we talk about it before I came? Yeah, so improve upper limb rehabilitation after stroke. These are just 4 examples, right? Did you know that you can actually put models in? It's like, hey, my arm doesn't work, and it will help feed those nerves. And what it'll do is it'll take a feed from your brain, boost it like the equalizer, like we used to put in our vehicles back when we were in high school, right? So we could get these really loud speakers that sounded absolutely horrible, but hey, it rattled the windows when we were sitting at the stoplight. You can actually use that exact same technology to boost the signal for your nerves so that your arm works again. Oh, if 120 volts doesn't work, let's try 240, right? Okay, and then is a research tool. All of this is moving us forward. We were talking a little bit before this about AI and healthcare. These are the things that excite me. So going back to, and again, if you come away from this presentation with, I'm not exactly sure what he was talking about, that's okay, because we've covered a lot of ground here. And these are things that I want you to start to consume. And now you can start to see why security in AI is almost impossible today. There's not a single thing as a CISO that I've talked about today that I can really secure there. So the ability to do your job with just an Oculus and your voice. And with that, that's the end of my presentation. Any questions? What's that? Thank you. Anything else? Oh.
So the common challenge we have as computer professionals is frequently the computer did what I told it to do, not what I wanted it to do.
Yes.
How do we get past that?
We can't today. So what I don't want to come up here is say, hey, AI is this awesome thing and you should go do all AI. Because we can't solve that problem today. As a matter of fact, I gave you examples of where it did something I specifically told it not to. Remember I said it's a petulant child? You can't control it today. And that's what I'm saying from a security perspective. So internal at TGS, we're piloting a whole bunch of AI tools. We have AI come to our meetings. I don't take notes anymore. I just invite AI to my meetings. It transcribes it, records a video, and I get a to-do list out of it. I'm like, okay, that's what I need to know. And then I move on with life. We can't today. There's no mechanism to control it. It's even worse than that. What prevents a user from putting their username and password in ChatGPT? Absolutely nothing. If you take a piece of data and you mark it with DLP and then you put it in ChatGPT, you know what? Those markings don't carry over. That data's gone forever. So there's a lot to understand about it. But to answer your question, we can't today. The inverse is actually more scary in that we can't stop other people from using AI against us. You can use AI to defeat every piece of malware that exists today. And you've been able to do that since 2019. That's 4 years. Most of you probably didn't know that, right? If you look at IBM's Persebius project or whatever it is. And then Cyber Weekly, a magazine that CISOs read, they paid them $40,000 in 2019 because they won an award defeating malware, anti-malware, I should say. So yeah, the answer to your question is no, we can't. What else? All right, well, thank you for letting me come and talk to you. If you have any questions, I'll be here.
Thank you so much. I love this. I love the pivot. Like, I was not expecting that, and then it was better. Like, between Uriah and Burton, I think that they saw the chat logs between Dustin, Ben, and I of like all the things we talked about, because we were looking for talks that were going to cover those things, and then they went ahead and just did it. And it wasn't even in some of the abstracts that we had reviewed and everything. So I'm blown away by our speakers so far. You guys are, another round of applause for all the speakers so far.